Message 13. We need to go on. Christ's person in the fulfillment of God's Old Testament prophecies. Item 21. He is the one who bore our griefs. Actually, griefs here denote infirmities and carried our sorrows. Sorrows here denote diseases. This is according to Matthew 8:17, which is a fulfillment of Isaiah 53:4. Then 22, up to item 21, we have seen what Christ is in his ministry. The person of Christ in his ministry is fully described and portrayed from item 13 up to item 21. Now, from item 22, another section begins. The meek king mounting a donkey's colt and entering Jerusalem triumphantly, to whom the crowds cried, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." I say again, I just don't have that much burden to speak more than what I have spoken in all those life studies. So you just go back to those life studies to see all these things. Anyhow, from these items, Christ's person is mentioned mainly in the section of his life concerning his death. Actually, his crucifixion begins from these items. When he was going to enter into Jerusalem, he was to present himself to that wonderful, all-inclusive death. The mounting on a donkey's colt was the beginning of his crucifixion. Probably never thought so, but yeah, if you get into all the references and the following items, you could see this point. Now, point 23, the one praised by the babes and sucklings. Of course, humanly speaking, 22 and 23 show us the golden time of Christ living on this earth. Now, in these two items, Christ was welcomed warmly and exalted, and then he was praised even by the babes and sucklings. You have the quotation, you have also the fulfillment. Then, item 24, you see, in 22 and 23, Christ was on the height of his human living. That was the golden time, humanly speaking. But from 25 and 24, the record comes down. He was the one betrayed by his friend who sold him for 30 pieces of silver. That was too cheap, right? You can read all the references. I say again, take care of the footnotes, if possible, get into some of the life study messages on this matter. After he was betrayed, he was muted. He was the shepherd, yet the shepherd was muted. This was prophesied in Zechariah. I'd like to tell you, in all the prophets, Christ was more prophesied in Isaiah and Zechariah. I like those two books. I still hope that we could get into the books not too long to see Christ there in those two books. here Christ was prophesied by Zechariah as a smitten shepherd. When the shepherd was smitten, then all the sheep were scattered. After being smitten, he was like a lamb brought to the slaughter, and as a sheep dumb before its shearers. You can see all these are his sufferings, and his sufferings began with his being betrayed by Judas. Then 27, the one executed with two criminals. This means he was considered by the Roman authorities as a criminal because he was executed that way. He was put together with two other criminals. But meantime, he was the one who made intercession for the transgressors, mainly for the Jews. He prayed for them to the Father. He interceded for them that the Father would forgive them, considering their evil as a kind of ignorance. So that could be considered as a trespass to be forgiven by God. Then item 29, he was robbed. Not his cash was robbed, nor his car was robbed, nor his home was robbed, but he was robbed in his garments. People even robbed his Williams. So his garments were divided by the crucifying soldiers. Actually, those Roman soldiers are robbers. See, the crucifying soldiers robbed him, right, of his garments. It's quite meaningful. I just don't have the time. Tell you the truth, I don't know why I don't have the heart to give you more. Because I felt I have given enough, so you have to go to that store to pick up the thing there. Life study. Number 30, he was the one owned for our transgressions, with whose stripes we are healed. I like all these prophecies. These prophecies were so dear to me when I was at your age, 10 years something. I loved all these messages. I love this message. I mean, these verses. Most of them are in the book of Isaiah. 31. When he was wounded for us, or for our transgressions, on him God laid our iniquity, and then he bore our iniquities. You have to read all these verses. As young saints, I would charge you to remember all these verses. You have to remember Isaiah 53:6, 11, 12, 1 Peter 2:24, and you have to remember also 1 Corinthians 15:3. Sorry, I remembered all these verses quite well. I recited them quite often, but not this morning. I lost quite much memory, but anyhow, still I'm good to speak. I encourage you young ones to take me as your pattern to remember all these verses. I'm not joking. This will help you to go to the campus. Out of your mouth you will throw the verse in 1 Peter 2:24. You see? Then item 32. After God laid our sins upon him, God considered him as the unique sinner. not a sinner, but also a sin. God considered him as a unique sinner, who is our substitute, who bears our iniquities, and God even considered him as sin. Actually, 2 Corinthians 5:21 tells us that God at that juncture made him sin on the cross. So what? So God forsook him. Of course, economically. He was the one forsaken by God economically. Then he became the cursed one hanging on a tree. The cross was considered as a tree in the New Testament. He was cursed one. He was the cursed one hanging on that tree. Now, I would have some changes from item 34. Item 34, I changed it to item 36. And I would make item 35 now 34. This is the new 34, the one to whom, as the cursed one, to whom gall was given, and vinegar also. I say again, you have to read all those references with all those notes there. Gall was something very bad in taste, and vinegar was given to somewhat neutralize the pain. Also, it was given as a kind of marking. All these were some kind of insults, a kind of suffering to the crucified one. 36, the original 66, or changed to 35, Christ as the one who poured out his soul unto death. This is also describing Christ's suffering. He suffered to such an extent that he poured out his entire being, the soul, unto death. Now you have the new 36. That is the first one. He was the first one, according to Psalm 22, Zechariah 12, and fulfilled in John 19:34 and 37. Now I would ask you to add a new 37, and this was missed by me. New 37 read this way: the one of whose bones not one was broken. The one of whose bones not one was broken. References: Exodus 12:46, Psalm 34:20, then John 19:32 through 36. He was the one pierced by the soldiers, and he was also the one of whose bones not even one was broken. This was typified in Exodus 12 and prophesied in Psalm 34 and fulfilled in John 19. Then you have to change 37 to 38. 38, he was on the cross, the Messiah, cut off, that means put to death by crucifixion. In the 7th year of the 69th week, from decree to restore and to build Jerusalem. You have to read Daniel 9:25 through 26. Then John 19:14 through 16. He was a very cut off Messiah on the cross. And he was cut in the right ear according to Daniel's prophecy. Then 38, you change to 39. After all the sufferings to death, he was the one buried in a rich man's tomb. This is concerning his burial. By this you could see right after the completion of his all-inclusive death, he entered into rest. The environment changed. There's no more persecution. He was buried in a rich man's tomb. Don't forget, he was born into a poor man's family, right? But now he was buried in a rich man's tomb. This could be considered as a sign that his sufferings was over. And he entered into rest. To bury to him was a rest, and exactly that was on the Sabbath day. You know, he was crucified on Friday, and he was buried on today's Saturday, which was, in the ancient time, the Jews' Sabbath. So he rested on the Sabbath day because he has completed his redemptive work. So he entered into rest. Then in King 40, 39 to 40, the one who was raised from the dead on the third day. Even the third day was prophesied in Hosea 6:2. After he's buried, his resurrection was prophesied. Then, in 40 to 41, he was the Holy One of Jehovah, whose soul Jehovah would not live in Hades. God would not leave his soul in Hades, and whom God would not permit to see corruption. This means his body. His soul, God would not live in Hades, and his body, God would not see it in corruption. And this indicates resurrection, which was quoted by Peter from Psalm 16 on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2:24 to 31, and then also quoted by Paul in Acts 13:35. If you study all these verses, you could see the Lord's wonderful resurrection prophesied in a wonderful way in Psalms. I like Psalm 13 verses 8 through 11. 16, 8 through 11. I don't have the time. I don't know why in this training I don't have the heart to speak too much. So you got to go there by yourselves with the help of the notes and the references as the fulfillment of these prophecies. I do believe what I have printed and distributed to you may be sufficient to help you. You have to do a good homework to get into those studies, then you get the whole thing. Now, dear saints, could you see that thus far in these 41 items concerning Christ's person, we have seen him, right? We have seen him in eternity as the Creator and as the very God. Then what? He was born to be killed, to grow as a man, a poor man in a poor family, and how he lived on this earth, right? Then how his ministry was began, and how he carried out his ministry as a faithful servant, not crying, not breaking the first raid, and now quenching the smoking fags and so forth. Then how he was betrayed, sold, and how he was despised, how he was put to death, and how he suffered. God forsake him, how he bore our iniquities, how he was made sin for us, and then how he was cut off as prophesied, and then how he was resurrected. It's wonderful, right? This indicates you could see Christ in all these aspects in the Old Testament. But the problem is, your eyes need to be opened. Today, so many Jewish friends, they treasure the Old Testament so much as the Holy Word. Yet, in their Old Testament, they couldn't see anything concerning Christ. Their mind was just blinded with the traditional teachings. When they study the Old Testament, they couldn't see Christ so much as we do this morning. Right? Hallelujah. We have been enlightened. We do have received the inner sight. The Lord has given us inner eye to see these things in the light of the New Testament revelation. We can understand so many aspects concerning Christ, prophecies in the Old Testament. This is really wonderful, right? I think now I have to give the meeting to this central section, right? It's yours. Try the best to say something.